for joining us for another wonderful session. Today I'll be using Visual Studio Code in this live presentation. I'll take you through some basic programming challenges from Leet Code and show you how to solve the problem. Before we get started, let us take a look at algorithms and see how we can tackle the problem using basic steps by writing an algorithm with some pseudocode, translating it to an actual code to arrive at the final solution. So what are algorithms in computer programming, and how can we make use of them to help solve challenging computational problems? Ideally, an algorithm consists of logical steps taken to analyze and solve a given problem. A well-designed algorithm is necessary to develop efficient program codes, as well as to minimize the consumption of computer resources. An algorithm is implemented through usage of computer programming language. The basic knowledge of programming language without a fundamental understanding of algorithms could make one a competent coder, but not a good programmer. Thus, algorithms form the building blocks of a computer programming. So before we start out by writing an algorithm that we'll use to solve a problem, we need to find a series of steps that we'll use to solve our problem. For example, let us assume that we are trying to prepare a meal. We'll need to take a few steps by following a recipe that will help us to arrive at the final solution. Let us compare a recipe to an algorithm, which is simply a series of steps taken to arrive at a preferred solution. We'll use pseudocode, which is not really a valid computer programming language, but simply any language we can understand, speak and write about. For example, English is a spoken language that we will try to translate to a valid computer language. So let's begin. Alright, so thank you again for joining this session. I'm just going to quickly run you through a couple of steps. We are going to go through to Leet Code, and once we go into Leet Code, we're going to look at a program called toSum, and basically given an array of integers, nums and integers to target, return indexes of two numbers such that they add up to target. You may assume that each input will have exactly one solution, and you may not use the same elements twice. You can return the answer in any order. So basically, the example they have here is an array of nums that has 2, 7, 11, and 15. Obviously, when you add all the elements together, each one of the elements together, the only ones that would add up to the target 9 would be 2 and 7, which is 0 and 1 as an output. So that's essentially what we're going to try to achieve. Same thing is applicable with example 3. You can see 3, 2, and 4. Obviously, if you add 2 and 4 together, it will give you the target 6. And that would be index 1 and 2. Then we have example 3, which is nums 3 and 3, and then the target is 6. Obviously, this one has 0 and 1. So that's essentially what we need to achieve in this programming challenge. So we're gonna start by starting with our pseudocode. This is just a series of steps. So first of all, we need to figure out how are we going to add up the sums, basically. So the sums of the two numbers is the first step. So we just say first step, sums of two numbers. So sums of two numbers in an array. And then basically in our first step, we're going to say something like dollar sum is equals to dollar let's just say nums, and then the index will, let's assume it's 0, and then the next one will be nums, and then 1. Okay, so this is essentially a very simple summing of two items in an array. But what if we had multiple items in our array? If we had multiple items, we would have to loop through them, basically. So we need a for loop. So we're just going to put that inside of a for loop and initialize it with a value of 0, just as the first item in this array here is 0. And then we're going to say I is less than. We're going to say size of, which is the size of the array. And then the array would be nums, and also we don't will go to the last element, so we want to go to the second last element. That's why we say -1, and then we say $I++. Okay. Now there's another thing that we need to figure out here in this solution. We need to be able to go through the array such that we are able to the first item and first loop in the array would be going through all the items until the items -1 basically, and the second loop would go through the second item in the list. So what we're gonna say for, and we're gonna initialize that as j is equals to, now we don't want to start at the very first element. The very first element is 0, so basically we're going to say $I, which is 0, and then +1. So it will always be the very element +1, and then the next thing is we're going to say $j is less than size of, and this time around we're going to say nums, but we're going to stop there because we do not want to get to the last element. We want to get to the last element of the array, but not outside of the array index, because if we do that we'll get an out of bound error, so we don't want to do that. So we're just going to say j++, and then this is going to take us to a very simple so let's see if we go in here. Now we have our sum, but now there's another thing. Once we've got the sum, we need to be able to determine okay, here we need to also change the items in the index. We haven't really got any, we're only just targeting 0 and 1, so we're going to say I and then j basically. So what's going to happen in here is that it'll loop through every element in the I and then in the j's to give you the specific solution answer. This time around we also need to do a sum to check, just to check to see if sum is equivalent to target, and if that is the case, we are going to then return our index basically, or our array. So the new array would now be return, and then we're going to say $I and then let's see j. So this yeah, that looks fairly simple. So this is this my attempt, and let's see if this actually works. So we're going to do a run, and let's see. Okay, seems fine. Let's go to test case, and we're going to try out all the different test cases because we've just tested the first test case. Let's try the second one. So the second test case will be 3, and then we're going to add 6 at the end, and then the next one will be 33, and then will be 6 at the end as well. So we're going to put 33 there and then 6. So it seems like those are all the 3 examples that they've given us, and so we're going to run it again and see against our test cases and see if we actually get all of it executed successfully without any problems. So there we go. Then we're going to submit, and that is our submission for the day, and let's see what gives us, and all successful. So this is a good example of how to pick up a challenge on Leet Code. And once you get on your challenge on Leet Code, it's very, very straightforward, and you can just take up your program and just pick one challenge that you like, you feel that you can be able to tackle, and then you take it from there. Basically, it's literally very, very straightforward. You shouldn't really have any problems to that effect, basically. So please remember to subscribe to my channel, and so you can get the latest updates. Whenever I upload videos, you can actually check out and see what we have in stock.